We're going to ease our way from all text-based content to graphics by starting out with a discussion on lists. Lists actually come in just two types. They're either bulleted or they're numbered. We use lists for several reasons, but they all revolve around the desire to somehow, some way simplify what could otherwise be lengthy blocks of text. Visually, they add interest, they draw attention, they break up long sections of body text, and indicate to the reader an area of summarized information. They allow readers to focus on information, especially if they're just skimming, and to possibly indicate that more details can be found following the list, but to provide a context in which they know what to expect in that detail. Of course, in the case of instructions, bullets or numbers simply make sense, and a person would want to progress through a process using those bulleted or numbered lists. I guess another feature for authors is that we don't have to write full sentences and paragraphs, and that kind of makes our writing easier and faster as well. So for all of those reasons, we want to be able to work with lists in Word. I've opened our business plan from the Chapter 6 Project Files folder. We have some areas that already have content, so all we have to do is convert them to lists. That's going to save us some typing, which at this point is no longer the focus. In order to quickly find these areas, though, let's go ahead and use the Find feature. We'll bring it up using the keyboard shortcut Control-F. Now, I've tried to make this a little bit easier by labeling parts of this document with some placeholders, if you will. They kind of use the double less than and greater than sign with words like lists and tables. So we're going to go ahead and use that to quickly go to one of our lists. I'll just type less than, list, greater than. And of course, because Word 2010 has this fabulous new Find feature, or at least the enhanced one, it's going to go ahead and show us all of the places in this document where we have those placeholders. We are not going to go through and convert all of these to lists, but remember, if there are any left over after we're done, you can use those to go ahead and practice making lists on your own. Because all these placeholders look alike, remember that we can pause over them and see little tooltips that will actually tell us where they are. This is on page 3, and it's the one that starts with short-term goals. We'll simply give that a click, and it takes us right to the point where we want to be. Now we can go ahead and press the delete key to get rid of that placeholder because we don't need it anymore. So let's go ahead and do that by selecting and just pressing delete. Now we're ready to create the list, but of course first we need to select the text. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut by holding my Shift key, pressing the End key to get to the end of the line, and then moving down until I get to the end of the list. Remember that if you go too far while still holding the Shift key, we're just going to press the up arrow. There we go, and now we have everything selected. Now it's simply a matter of applying the bulleted list format. This can be found on the Home tab from the Paragraph group, and we have 3 buttons that are of interest. The first is Bulleted Lists, the second is Numbered List, and the third is called a Multi-Level List, which we'll get to in just a little bit. We can either click on the face of the button to apply the default format, or of course we can use a drop-down, and we can see any variety of other options that we have. We'll get to customizing these a little bit later. We also see that if we pause over them, we get our live preview in the document, so if you're not sure what it's going to look like, you can check it out before you actually apply it. Now, if yours doesn't look like this, that's okay. You can simply choose whatever your default bullet style is. That really is all there is to it. So let's go ahead and just do a couple more, and I'm again going to do this using my keyboard. So I'm going to press down a couple of times, get rid of this next list placeholder, and select the text for long-term goals just like we did before, making sure that I do not include the paragraph text. So actually this is just a few lines. Make sure that's all selected, come back up to my bulleted button, and this time I'm just going to click on the face of the button. Notice that it does apply the default, which also happens to be our little mouse. If by chance you accidentally put bulleted text on a paragraph that you don't want, it's no big deal. For example, when I was using my keyboard, I accidentally selected some extra text. All we need to do is click in that one paragraph, or if it's more than one paragraph, select the text. Remember that for paragraph features, if it's only for one paragraph, we just place the cursor. For more than one, we do have to select. So I'm just going to click in this part that starts with "These goals will be achieved," and we'll go back up to the button and simply click on it to turn it off. That returns it back to the normal style. I'm using the wheel on my mouse now to keep coming down, and we can see general description of business comes next, so it looks like we went ahead and got all of our bullets in place. Well, that's easy enough for bulleted lists, but let's go ahead and see exactly how we work with numbered lists as well. we're going to follow kind of the same process. We're going to use our find or our navigation pane to look for the words product/services. And that's going to help us find the next place where we want to put a list. So we'll move back over to that navigation pane on the left-hand side of the screen. We'll go ahead and remove the word lists. And this time we'll simply type products/services. And fortunately, it's a little bit more simple than our list. This one only has one occurrence, so we'll give that a click. When we find that in the document, we need to now find the place where we want the actual list to be. Now at this point you may be saying, well, geez, here's another one of those placeholders that you have. Why didn't you just use the search that we had already? Well, we certainly could have, but I'm trying to show you that there are different ways to work through a document. So for this next list that starts with standard desktop applications, we're going to get rid of that list placeholder. And again, we'll go ahead and select the text. I'm going to use my mouse to go ahead and scroll up a little bit to make sure that I can see what I want to see. It gets to be a little bit more confusing when you're working with longer pieces of text, so we need to make sure that we find all of the text. And this time, instead of the keyboard, I'm just dragging with the mouse. Standard desktop applications, graphics and web design, technical training. We also have soft skills. This is the text that we want to use as a numbered list. Just like we did before with the bullets, we can come up and just click on the face of the button, or we can click on the drop down. I want to show you the drop down, of course, so that we can see there are different formats for numbering. We have both Arabic and Roman numerals, upper and lower case. We can have it followed by a period or a parenthesis. There's all kinds of things that we can do. Once again, though, we'll just use the default. We'll go ahead and click, and now we can see that we get a nice numbered list that lets people easily see there are 4 types of trainings or categories of training that we offer. All right, now what? Well, now we're going to come down and we're going to do one more list. Get rid of the marker. Select the text. This time it's going to run from standard full day classes all the way down to boot camps. We'll use a different technique though this time. The cursor is in front of standard. This time we're going to hold the shift key and we're going to click after boot camps 3 to 5 day courses. That's that click, shift, click that we talked about a long time ago. Now again, we're going to apply a numbered format. So you say, well, all right, big deal. Why are you telling us this all over again? Well, because I want you to notice that our prior numbered list ended with number 4, and then there was some text, and then we had another numbered list. And Word takes a look at this and tries to say, okay, I don't think they want to continue the numbering because there's some other text in between the lists. However, we do have choices. If we try to select text with the mouse, it generally starts with the body text. But we can right-click on bullet points or on the numbers, and this gives us a contextual menu that gives us some choices. In the case of numbered lists, it gives us the option to continue numbering or to set the numbering value. Let's go ahead and just show you what can be done by choosing continue numbering. Now you can see that it simply picked up where the other list left off. This is something that really frustrates a lot of people. How do they get the numbering to work the way that they want? Generally, it either restarts when they don't want it to, or it doesn't restart when they do. Now it's simply a matter of right-clicking on the number and choosing what you want. If you didn't want it to start with 5 or with 1, we could right-click and we could choose Set the Numbering Value. And this simply brings up a little window that lets us start a new list, continue the list, and we can also set the value. So I could say, for example, start it at 6 or at 12. We're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and just say Cancel. But I think for this particular list, we do want to restart numbering. So again, as a review, all it is right-click, and we'll say Restart at 1. Now we have 2 separate numbered lists. Just like we saw with our bulleted lists, once again, if we ever make some little errors or boo-boos, shall we call them, and we didn't select text or we did, we can turn the numbering on and off. We didn't include transition support. We want to do that now, so we simply turn on the numbers. Because there's no text between the last line, boot camps, and the one we just selected, Word is smart enough to say, I think they actually want that to be part of the list. But again, if that wasn't true, we'd simply right-click and we'd correct it as necessary. So we've been able to format some very simple bulleted and numbered lists, but sometimes we have more detailed lists, and we want to create different levels. This is also sometimes known as a hierarchy. Well, you know what? This is easy enough as well. We have this option up at the top in our ribbon next to regular bulleted and numbered lists called a multi-level list. And if we display this in the drop-down, we can see that it gives us just that. This is kind of the stuff that we learned back in probably 3rd or 4th grade about creating outlines. For example, we can have the number 1, the next level is A, then it comes back into a 1, and so forth, with different formatting for each level. Let's just play a little bit with this second list and see how we can make it a multi-level list. If we select the text, then choose the default multi-level option, we don't initially see anything. What I also want you to notice is that it didn't stay on the multi-level list. It actually bumped back over to a numbered list. This can actually be a bit confusing. I know when they first brought out this feature, it took me a little bit to figure out exactly what was going on. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. If we select the text like we did, and then select a multi-level option, depending on the type of formatting for the multi-level option, it's either going to bump over to a standard bullet or a standard numbered list. In other words, this option really only gives us a variety of choices for each level, but then it just goes back to what we already know about bulleted and numbered lists. When it gets different is by realizing that now we can use our tab and our shift tab key to work with the bulleted levels and the numbered levels. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm just going to press my left arrow key. That moves me to the beginning of my selected text, and we'll leave standard as number 1 for now. If we press our down arrow so that the cursor is at the very beginning of the line, and that's important, it has to be at the very beginning, not in the middle. Then if we press our tab key, we can see that this is where the multi-level feature comes into play. If we continue to press tab, we go from A to a small I, back to a number 1, back to an A, and you see that we can continue for many, many levels. Actually, the number of levels is 9. Word allows up to 9 levels of indents or levels in a multi-level list. Now, how do we get it back is the next question. Well, I like to use the keyboard, so we're simply going to use Shift Tab to move back in the other direction. Hold down Shift, press Tab, and each time we do so, it comes back to the left, promoting the text. So now we can bring the Power Trip classes line all the way back to the number 2, just like it was before. As a person who creates a lot of course outlines and curriculum, that has been an indispensable tool in my work, and I think you'll probably find it useful, at least on occasion, as well. Well, a long time ago, I realized that one of the most frustrating things people dealt with regarding lists was how to get an additional line without necessarily getting a new bullet or number. Now, we didn't actually type this text, but after standard full-day class of 7 hours, we pressed Enter. Then we typed Power Trip classes and Enter, Key Insight Seminars and Enter, just like we normally would consider doing with text. The question is, how does that affect a list? If we press Enter, either when we originally type the text or as we're creating a list kind of on the fly, we're always going to get either a new bullet point or a new number. We get those because lists use hard returns to designate not just where a new line should go, but a new paragraph, and a new paragraph equates to a new list item. If we remember back to our discussions about using the Enter key in paragraphs, we recall that if we press Shift Enter, that is not a hard return or a paragraph, but a soft return. And a soft return is a line break instead of a new paragraph. Well, maybe that's where it gets interesting. Because in the case of lists, this gets us a new line without the bullet or number, or all the other creative things that we used to do to try to accomplish getting a line without a number. And trust me, people got very creative when it came to that. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that. Let's go ahead and press the End key, E-N-D. Simply gets us to the end of the line. And just to show what normally happens, we'll press Enter, and not unexpectedly we get the number 3. All right, well, let's not do that. Up arrow, End key, Delete. That gets us back where we were. This time, we're going to hold Shift while we press Enter. And this time you can see that we not only do not get the number, but it keeps the cursor indented to where the text should actually start. So this is going to give us the ability to create multiple lines of text underneath the number 2 without having to turn the numbering and bullets on and off. I have found through my years of word training that that little tidbit may just save you endless hours of frustration. So we can easily apply lists to existing text. Each new paragraph is going to get a bullet or a number. Or we can turn this feature on and then type. Again, each time we create a new paragraph, we'll get a new list item. Word is smart though, so instead of turning on the things manually by clicking on the ribbon like we did before, we actually can also use a feature called Auto Format as you type. If we type the number followed by a period, for example, and then a space, Word is automatically going to realize that we want to start a numbered list. It's going to indent and turn on the feature all on its own. So if you are creating new content, it actually can be faster this way rather than having to move back and forth to the mouse and the ribbon. Likewise, if we do a dash followed by a space and then some text, we'll also get bulleted lists. So let's take a look and see how that might work. Let's go to a section we have called Outside Services and see if we have some text there that we can utilize to do a new list. So we'll move back over to our navigation panel. We'll erase what's there. I'll start typing Outside Services. Should be able to click on just the one entry that is found. And once again, we have one of our little placeholders. So we will get rid of that. We're used to doing that by now. And now I'm not actually going to convert this list, just have the text here so we know what we want to type. So let's press Enter to get to a new line of text and press the up arrow. Now let's try one of these techniques and pretend that the content wasn't already here. Let's try this technique. Let's type a hyphen or the dash followed by a space. Notice that it automatically bumped over because now it thinks it's a bulleted list. And if you look at the ribbon, you can see that the bulleted list option is actually enabled as well. Then all we'd have to do is type. Let's go ahead and just repeat accounting and payroll. We know that once we are in a list, when we press Enter, the list continues. So it's not very exciting, but we do have this little dash. Then we could do our second entry, Legal Services. We'll go ahead and press Enter again and show you that if you want to turn it off, you can simply press your backspace key, which we'll do now. Backspace says go ahead and turn that off, but notice that it does keep the indent. Let's go ahead and press Enter one more time, keeping the indent again because we have that paragraph feature set up. Indents are part of the paragraph. But if we press backspace one more time, actually a total of 3 more times, that will get us not only out of the list, but also back to our flush left indent. I did that because I wanted to show you that we can create another type of list using auto format, and that is simply a bulleted list, but this time using the asterisk. Let's try typing an asterisk followed by a space. Personally, I think this one is a little bit more interesting than the dash. It is just a little round dot, but for most people that's graphical enough, and it is a little bit more interesting than using the hyphen and the space. So we can quickly create or turn on bulleted and numbered lists by simply typing hyphens, asterisks, or numbers followed by dashes or periods and a space, and Word will be smart. Once we finish the list, we can disable it by either clicking the option in the ribbon to just turn it off, or like we saw, we can press the backspace, or if you just press Enter 2 times without typing anything in between, it will turn off the list and put you back to your left indent as well. If these auto-formatting features don't seem to be working, go to Word Options in the Backstage view, select the Proofing category, and look at the options on the Auto Format as you type tab. That's where you will find these things can be turned either on or off. So, there you have it. We've seen them a million times. We've appreciated them because they add visual impact as well as simplify documents, and now we know how to create them ourselves by either simply using the ribbon options or by just typing. By the way, lists work exactly the same way in applications like PowerPoint and Outlook too. So who would have thought it'd be that easy to format text in a more visual and easy way? Well, I did, and hopefully now you understand it.